The dreadful final exam. Anna knows all about it. She's about to hit the 9 and 10 exams soon. It's safe to say everyone hates exams. And now 2 major Canadian universities have started to take the step away from them, saying they're not an accurate way of measuring a student's knowledge. The move has educators around the world split, but alternative educator Sarah Longbottom agrees with the exam ban. She joins me now. Sarah, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Paul.
What's the upside of presumably progressive assessments rather than exams?
I really think it opens the door for educational reform, and for me that means assessment really catching up with the learning styles that have been reforming over the last few years. I think the upside also is that it's responsive more to each individual learner and is a good way to actually gauge what a student has learned.
So is the suggestion here that exams are a thing of the past, or that assessment forms more of a judgment and the exam is still there but doesn't form such an important part of the decision?
Yeah, I think the latter. I think the exam still has a place, and I think the idea of a graduated really for a student to come to a graduated understanding of what that stress means, as Anna is feeling in Christchurch.
Yes.
How do you use that stress for success as opposed to failure? So I believe that there is a role for exams, particularly for some subject areas.
So what you're saying is there are things that you can learn about a person by putting them through that exam process, so that is still an important tool.
Well, I think there's something someone can learn about themselves. And I mean, I'm thinking of my personal experience. I mean, I am someone who loved exams. But I think that feeling of stress and that feeling of anxiety, I came from a sporting background. I was successful at school, so I connected that intrinsically with success. Someone who hasn't had that same thing might associate the feelings of stress intrinsically with a sense of failure. So in terms of walking into an exam, I was walking in having already succeeded.
Yes.
Other people might walk in subconsciously having already failed. So it's just
it's a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is one of the concerns with a sort of a progressive assessment that it is slightly more ambiguous? I mean, the one thing you know with an exam is that every child is the same age and every child is getting exactly the same exam marked in exactly the same way. With an assessment process, it is a bit ambiguous, isn't it?
Yeah, but every kid is not exactly the same, and I think life is ambiguous. People are ambiguous, and I think having that stringent one way to test, and yes, you're right, at a particular time in a kid's development, but that undermines the brilliance of the diversity of who we are.
Is there a worry that with the assessment process you are handing much more onto the individual teacher? Some teachers are better than other teachers, and also some teachers have different relationships with different students, which could affect assessments.
Absolutely, but as I said, I think that something like an abolition of exams is a doorway to full educational reform, and I truly believe that needs to happen. It has been happening gradually over the last few years, but opening the door to that kind of reform, you have to look at everything. You have to look at teacher relationships with students. You have to look at teacher training. You have to look at the structure of schools. I mean, I was a teacher for many years. I now drive past schools and I say, is that really where we send our kids?
Is that the future?
Well, just where we send our kids for 8 hours a day. It just seems odd to me, really.
So very quickly, Sarah, where is the future for exams, do you think? Because there is something of a groundswell globally moving away from exams as the tool they've been used for. Do you think that in the next decade things are going to change dramatically?
I would imagine that they would, and I would hope that it would be in tandem with the other educational reforms that are necessary to ensure that the learning that goes on through the year is succinct and is of excellence and of betterment for the kids.
Brilliant. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Alternative educator Sarah Longbottom.